the woke fountain. It's the woke pips again. Like, we know you already took like a risk clicking for this episode, and that's exactly what we're gonna talk about today. Fear, anxiety, and doubts are often followed when risk taking is involved, but sometimes this is needed and can actually be a good thing. Fun fact, the key to success is learning how to fail. Listen in as we discuss more about this in detail. So, to start with, what type of risk are appropriate for you to take at this time and age? Like, what do you guys think? Like, what type of risk do you think is like okay and very, very appropriate to like take at this time and age? When I say time, I mean like the world
Yeah.
we live in right now and then our age.
Um, do you guys want to go first, or you want me to? I feel like I'm always saying it when someone goes. Like I always jump first.
That's okay. Just jump into
You're
it.
right, because we're taking risks today.
Exactly.
So
Jump into the
I guess
whirlpool.
a risk that's appropriate to take or to do in this time of age would be careers. Exploring like in our previous episode. If you guys haven't listened to that, go check it out. Like with our careers, I keep referring to my personal experience, but you have the acting, you have the teaching, and then you have beauty, like skincare, which I never thought I would want to get into. So definitely just testing out the waters to see which one is the perfect fit for you. And like in our previous episode, that's where you will be able to discover your passion. So taking risks is exploring each pond before you take that big dive into the ocean.
Definitely. So basically, also another risk is not fearing change, as we mentioned the last episode. I know like sometimes it's easier to stay with what you already chose or what you think you want to be and those types of things. But taking the risk to also try many different things and be able to change certain things about yourself, about your mindset, about your path, your goals, and those types of things. So being able to change or not fear change is another risk that is necessary to take at this time and age, because nothing is certain. Even life is not certain. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. So instead of like overthinking and just settling on one thing, is like it's better to keep thinking about many different directions that you could go in life. So not fearing to change your path is also a great risk that you could take at this time.
Yeah. And like people just understanding that without knowing we take risk every day. Like literally waking up is a risk in the sense. Going to bed is a risk because like, you might not wake up the next day. Like standing up for your bed, leaving the house, that's a risk because somebody can just like pass by and like hit you in the head or like shoot you or mug you or something or flash you and stuff like that. It's just like and it's just like having like that consistency, like okay, this is not a bad thing to take a risk, right? And being able to identify like how big a risk is, like, or how small a risk is. It's just like, okay, I'm gonna take this big risk. I'm gonna go to college. I'm gonna go start with general studies, or I'm going to take a risk into this major that I want to do. And it's just like at this age, like being in our 20s or entering your 20s, or just like whatever your age is, and it's at this time, is this risk okay for me to take? Like, you guys understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's just
That that's very like interesting that you say that, because with us being in this age, we are experimenting a lot with a lot of things. Those two big things, which comes to my mind, is sex and drugs. Like, yes, we are in that time where we want to experiment. Some of us are now jumping into relationships. Some of us are now hearing about, like you're at your parents' house or you're in college now. I want to experiment with drinking. I want to experiment with smoking. But just know you don't always have to take that risk to do those things just to seem
that's when appropriation
cool,
comes in.
because there are like bad effects to it, and there are also pretty good effects to it. But when you do take, and I'm not saying you guys shouldn't because I will sound wrong. I'll be a hypocrite to say don't take that risk when I've taken that risk many times. But when you do take those risks, be in an area or be with people who you can trust and that you are like can be safe with when you do take those type of uh scary risks, you know. So yeah, just wanted to add on to what Divine said.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, that's why if you notice there's a lot of things like when you're taking risks, they kind of like put age limits on. Like for example, if you're trying to go through an obstacle course, they'll be like, oh, you have to be from this certain age because they're like, maybe your mind hasn't like grown enough, or you probably don't have the physical abilities to go through that. Just finding like this is something I can take. Other people have taken this, so why can't I do it? That's another thing that plays in factors of like taking risk. And sometimes don't overthink it, just jump into it, because you never know. But always make sure there's a safety pin, not safety pin, there's a kind of safety net to catch you.
And did anyone want to add on to that?
Yeah.
I was gonna say something, but
Yeah,
I
you
want.
can say something.
Oh, I was just gonna say like, with these risks that we take, they can definitely benefit you in the long and short term. So, like Divine, have you taken any risks that have like benefited you short term or in a long term? Or yeah.
So that's a good this thing. So I feel like risk can come it's just like as I was saying earlier, like risk, right? You have to like look at it like how this benefit me in the short or long term. So I've taken risk in so many ways that they kind of like, okay, for instance, right? I took a risk coming to America. I could have been killed along the way. There's the risk of me coming to America and losing myself and like going into like the deep things, like bad deep things. Cause like honestly, like my parents, like they heard so many things about how like kids come to America, especially if they're international student from Africa, and they kind of like get into drugs and stuff, or they get kidnapped and go into like sex trafficking. You guys get what I'm saying, right? And it's just like, you know, but if I didn't take that risk of like coming here to America, which would benefit me in the long run, I could have just like stayed in my home country, like worrying about like these things and the effects.
Mm-hmm.
But like coming here, that I'll say that's like something that have helped me like in the long run because I've been learning and growing in so many ways that I did when I was back in my home country. And then short risk is like something like attending a club, like actually joining a club, because joining clubs are kind of risky. Like you actually don't see it, but like you can join a club that can actually not put you in a straight path of life, if that makes sense.
I'm sure, Dina, you probably joined several clubs, right?
Yeah.
Like being in college. How has those like have you taken any risk being in those clubs? And if so, like how has that benefited you in a long or short way?
Actually, the clubs that I joined, most of them I joined and never went to. So
Yeah.
I could say that is a risk, but I don't know. Sometimes you would think about joining something, right? You go through it and then later you change your mind, and that's okay too. Because like sometimes when you make choices, you have to think about the pros and the cons. But some of us, like me, I'm very impulsive sometimes and I just do stuff without thinking, and then later I think about the consequences. But as long as you're still thinking about the consequences after, that's good. So you should always think about the pros and the cons of that.
Yeah.
I was said I've taken before, I think I mentioned in the last episode, was changing my major. Because, as we mentioned in other episodes about strict African household or strict parents and their expectations, and you know that how some of these parents can have a specific career path expectation for you. So I chose pharmacy because that will bring money to the table. but that would not make me
Right.
happy. So a risk was changing to psychology because it's a broader category, and it doesn't bring much money to the table because I'm doing social work right now, and social workers I think make an average of 20,000 to 30,000 per year, which is not much. But
Right.
I took that risk to change from something that could bring money to the table but makes me unhappy to something that doesn't bring much but might make me happier. So that's a risk that I took before.
Your happiness counts. I mean,
Yeah, I agree. For me, I took a risk with being a theater major. And I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Me wanting to do acting, and acting isn't always a consistent pay unless like you really make it, and all of a sudden when you're in a big movie, people are like, "Oh wow, you're making a lot of money." Well, hell yeah, like I like that career. But yeah, what about you, Nina?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like based on what all of you said, like taking a risk is a big thing, especially, being young. This is basically the age of experimentation, as you mentioned. And I feel like when it comes to things like that, you just have to be careful of what you're experimenting with. Because yes, we're young, we're able to bounce back in the future. Because if we 50 years old, we start experimenting, there's not much leave room because we already have established house, we already have a job, we already have kids. There's not much room there. So obviously now is a great time to be taking those risks and experimenting. But you need to establish avenues. You need to set paths. You need to have a vision and goal. So you know exactly, okay, if this doesn't work, I'll try this. Okay, if this doesn't work, I'll try this. So you stay focused because again, there are consequences. There are pros and cons to these things. And honestly, as human beings, we want to avoid all those cons as much as possible. So you really do need to stay focused, have a plan, a vision, and kind of just go for it. Sometimes the cons might be really heavy, but you have to know exactly what matters to you. And the pros might be very rewarding. So you need to see whether it's worth it. Like for me, I took a huge risk dropping out of college, like huge risk, because not a lot of people do that. So it's like, okay, so now I had to figure out what I want to do now. And that's a risk in itself, but I believe in myself and I believe in my vision. That's the only reason why I'm saying, okay, well, the risk has its benefits and I know what those benefits are and I'm going to go for it. So you really do need to have a vision and goal, and
yeah,
you can seek out what you need to do.
yeah, I totally agree with you. Based on what you said, it's just like before you take a risk, right? There are questions you ask yourself, like, okay, me taking this risk, right? Like, how does he help me mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially, right?
Even before you take that risk, where are you? And that's
Exactly. And with that, you ask yourself, like, when I take this risk, right? Do I have a support system? Like, is there a support system to back me up, or is there a support system to like be there to like follow me along the way while I take this risk? And it's just like, okay, this risk, does it just affect me or does it like affect everyone around me? Like this risk I'm taking, like people kind of like take risk as a small thing, but there's a lot of factors that play in risk that you have to ask yourself before you take that risk, right? You just have to ask yourself, is it the time for me to take this risk? For example, right? This is something I did, and it can actually, like, I realized me taking this risk can actually like play a big role in like my life, right? So I went on we went on a school trip. This was back in Montgomery College. We went to Silver Springs. I can't remember the place, but either way, it had an obstacle.
yeah, I remember.
Zip lining an obstacle course.
Yeah.
I started like, all right, yeah, my support system was Olivia, bro. We got halfway. I was so scared. I was not mentally prepared. I was not physically, I don't know if I was physically prepared, but like my mental state and emotional state was so down. And what was so funny was that Olivia was like, at first she was scared, and I was like cheering her on. Have a good cheering spirit, guys. I'll just lead you on, bro. And she went ahead. I was so happy for her, but like my support system was ahead of me.
Yeah.
I was just there. I was like, I can't do this. They told me I wouldn't fall. Like
Mhm.
the whole support stuff, like
Right.
yeah, the zip line stuff. They're like, I wouldn't fall, right? I was so scared. I couldn't. And
And but the beautiful thing about that though is that you stepped out of your comfort zone.
I
Like
did.
you saw the anxiety, you saw the doubt, you saw all of that happening in me, but I still continued to move forward because I know by me living out of my comfort zone, I'll be able to grow. And you was able to do that. You was able to step out of your comfort zone. Even if it was like one or two steps, you still moved forward and you were able to grow from that. And I'm sure that definitely helped you in areas that I
Yeah.
probably didn't see that helps you personally, you know?
You know? So, but it was that I was happy I took that step, but I was kind of like bad that I felt so bad that I didn't like finish it, you know? I'm so grateful for Olivia because I didn't like that first risk I took, right? I didn't accomplish it, but like my support system was there to help me get away from that. You don't understand. I couldn't go back. She had to like come back to follow me down there. But you know what was so amazing this year? Like without planning, like those group of people I met, I mentioned in the other episode from CARP. So I went for a spiritual retreat, right? So one of the days we went for a zip lining program and obstacle course. There was part one and there was part two. I finished part one successfully. Part two was so hard. I was like, at first, I was like, I want to be, because like I was among the first people that went on the obstacle course, right? I'm kind of like the heaviest person there. No, I wasn't the heaviest, second to heaviest, but like you guys get the idea, right? So I was trying to like set like a kind of motivation stand for people. Like, if I can do this, so can you. Because everybody there was like so fit. Like these people, they do a lot. They wake at 6:30 and go back to bed at 11, and they do a lot of exercises. It was hard, I survived. So yeah, I was trying to be like, okay, if I can do this, these people can do it too, because the obstacle course was high. So I got to a point where everything was challenged, my mental, my physical, and that week they were talking about having so much faith in my father. That's like God, right? So basically, right, it was so hard. And I had a support system. She was there to help me, and the people behind me were there helping me. It was like slowly but surely I got over that obstacle course and I went through to the end. I was so happy because I was like, I took that risk of going through the obstacle course again, and that was the appropriate time because I actually finished it, but I caused a traffic jam though.
Bruh.
Because a lot of people like parked like sardines behind me. Like I was just there waiting for me because I was like, don't get on here, let me cross over, please. But
That was the only con. Just you creating the traffic jam, but that's nothing though. Don't look what's happening behind you and just focus on what's happening in front of you. And I don't think you've got any consequences, like any bad consequences. And I don't think anyone can get any bad consequences from taking a risk, unless it's like, gee, I don't know,
no, there are
something irresponsible. Okay, then yeah, probably. But something that's to help you grow and something that's meant to benefit you, I don't think you can get any bad consequences on that. What do you think, Nina, Dana?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like what she said was very important because we just realized there are two big emotional factors that come into play. So either being impulsive can talk you into doing something, or fear will talk you out of doing something. So like the mental state that you're in, as we address, is very important. But you need to know, like, even though an opportunity presents itself and you don't take it, whether it is out of fear or whether you were being impulsive and it made you take it, usually something will come back around that will correct itself. So like in this case, Divine, who knew that Divine would end up like going head to head with his zip line once again? Like she didn't know that. And even though she felt bad the first time, saying, man, I wasn't able to do it, or man, I suck, or man, I really should have gone for it. An opportunity will always present itself for you to always achieve whatever you were supposed to achieve. Because in the end, it usually is meant to be when you have that mentality and that mindset that, okay, even if I didn't do it today, tomorrow is another day where I'll take it again. Okay, if I don't do it tomorrow, I'll do it the next day. You always have to keep continually working at working on yourself first before you go ahead and take things like that, because it's scary. Like, imagine if she did it the first time. She knew she wasn't ready. She knew she couldn't do it at that time, but when the time presented itself, she was able to do it. She got it. So never shame yourself.
Yeah, like
Always continue to encourage yourself.
Mhm.
continue to persevere.
Dana?
That's the point of it.
Yeah. And yet again, the whole fear and anxiety and doubt that accompanies your thoughts is not always a bad thing. It can always also be a good thing because it's a sign that you're actually stepping out of the comfort zone and that you're moving forward and growing. If you're just in the same place all the time, you're not growing, you're not moving forward, you're just in one place. And so you don't have the fear, you don't have the doubts, you don't have the anxiety because you're not growing. So don't be afraid to have fear, doubt, and anxiety because those are natural emotions. You can't stop yourself from feeling
Right.
that. You can't stop yourself from going forward because you don't want to feel that. So
You have to let it pass by.
yeah, embrace it. Embrace
Embrace it, yeah.
Embrace it and conquer that junk, bro.
But like,
Exactly.
All embracing it.
it'll always be around. Sorry, Divine?
Oh no, yeah, I was just like trying to like conclude what everybody was saying. And just like, yeah, I agree with everybody, embrace it, persevere, strive for it. Make sure you have a support system. A support system is like a backbone, because without the backbone, it's like, just like, ugh.
We'll move, Seth.
Yeah. And always like, before you take risk, for me, you have to look at the consequences, This type of risk, like, is it good or bad? And is this something that I'm just doing for fun, or is this something I want to like benefit me truly? It's just like when Olivia was talking about sex and smoking and stuff like that. It's a risk to take a smoke because there's a possibility you might like it so much, and there's the chance of becoming an addict. But like that's a whole story altogether. But you look at it, the consequences, the good and bad, and some risks they have both, and you check which one is higher, the good or the bad, and which one benefits me and people around me. You have to make sure, because there's always someone that will care about you out there. You make sure like you risk you're taking doesn't like affect other people in a bad way. So yeah, that's what I have to say.
That sums it all up, guys. But yeah, moral of the story is take risk. And if you get too comfortable with staying in that little square, that little box of yours, there's only so much room that you can continue pushing out, But in order to grow, you have to push through those borders. And that's living outside your comfort zone. And that includes taking risks, And if it's there to help you grow and it's there to benefit you, then there's no bad consequence that comes along with that. And as long as you have a support system, whether it's your friends, whether it's your family, or even if it's just you and God is that's the biggest support system you can get. That's like, I always say, God is your life insurance. God is your support. So like, that's just, sometimes that's all you need,
Right.
Sorry, Divine?
Oh yeah, I say yeah, God is your heavenly parent.
Yeah. He's your creator. So give him all that fear, all that anxiety, all that doubt, put in his hands because he's a creator. He knows what to do with it. Or give it to the universe, give it to whatever else, But just know that in order to live life and fulfillment, you have to be out of your comfort zone. And I think, sorry?
Yeah, continue. I just remembered something. Risk is like hard work. Without the hard work and effort, you won't get to it.
Definitely. It's hard work. It's like climbing up a mountain. It's gonna take a lot of endurance, a lot of struggles, a lot of blood, tears, all of that. But at the end of the day, like, you're gonna make it to the top, and then you can see all the other mountains and all that good stuff. So thank you guys so much for joining us on this special podcast. I hope you guys were all able to learn something episode about taking risk, and what comes with it and what you can get from it. So please tell us on social media what other topics you want to hear from us. Don't forget to follow our social media, and tune in next time as we discuss our next episode on the Woke Fountain. So thank you guys so much. Stay blessed.